Right. Well, first, I'm just going to briefly go through my background because I am so passionate about what we're going to be talking about, and I want you to understand where I'm coming from. So I've been a nurse for the past, gosh, longer than I would like to admit now, 16 or 17 years. Well, thank you. I like you. You come sit by me. So anyway, I had my master's in informatics, worked for a healthcare software company as well. Had started a family, didn't want to travel anymore, so I stayed home. And then I didn't want to be a full-time mom. I wanted to do something. So I went back to get my nurse practitioner almost 7 years ago. And when I graduated from that, I had my second baby and worked in a very traditional setting, was very conventionally trained, wrote prescriptions, still do when I need to. It's a lot different now though. So I was in that setting. I decided to do my first triathlon after really not smart, after just having a baby, still nursing and everything. And my immune system completely crashed. Long story short, I was hospitalized 3 different times. I lost 35 pounds off of this. Finally, the test that I was begging my internal medicine doc to do after he was scanning me for cancer and gallbladder and this and that, I was horribly nauseated, had all within that first week of doing the triathlon, had bronchitis and shingles that went from here to here and down, and horrible nausea, had lost over 30 pounds in the first 4 weeks, and I was an ER nurse, so going into the ER with nausea after 4 weeks is a no-no, and I knew it, and I was horrified. But anyway, so he finally runs the test, and I thought my stomach was paralyzed, and sure enough, on the final test that he did, he said, "Toni, it is. A normal stomach empties in 2 hours." Around that time. Yours is 6+, not even registering. So I was on a wait list to see if I needed a pacemaker on my stomach. I never believed in supplements, didn't really think nutrition did much for you. Grew up, my dad was Mr. Kansas bodybuilder in 1985. So I grew up in that low fat, no fat, never eating any fat, you might get fat, which we're a nation of fat, and we're all low fat, so there's a problem there. But anyway, so a nurse practitioner friend referred me to a chiropractor. Would you consider alternative therapies? And I'm thinking, but I was so desperate. I couldn't get a dish to the sink. I couldn't carry my babies up the stairs, nothing. So I go and see these functional medicine chiropractors. It was the first time I'd ever heard of functional medicine. And they fixed me. By the time I saw them, through a lot of nutrition, some supplementation, and a little bit of acupuncture, I was literally 150% better than I was even before getting sick. So for me, I was angry, and I thought, I've never heard of any of this, and it's really, functional medicine is getting to the root of the problem. It's not just seeing symptoms and treating with a prescription. It's truly looking at what's going on in your body, and let's try to help your body fix it instead of just throwing putty on the wall or a Band-Aid on something. There are still times I will prescribe, but I'm always looking at the root of the problem. So I am currently getting certified along with Dr. Murray, who is my collaborating physician over at Saskatoon in functional medicine. And really a huge foundation within functional medicine is nutrition. So I didn't get any of this in my traditional program. All of this has been learned through my certification in functional medicine. So with that, this is a 3-hour class that we do that I've condensed into 1 hour. So bear with me. And if we have any questions at the end and so forth, we'll get those all answered. But I always start with, again, food, because 80% of the battle, I think when I ask somebody about their health, they'll say, "Oh, I exercise," or "Oh, I need to exercise." It's always about exercise. Don't get me wrong, is important, but if you don't put on the end of your fork what you need to be healthy, it doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter. So I always start with food first. Again, kids. Well, I'll get to that part, but I like this because, again, functional medicine, getting to the root of the problem. This is from 2007. We've known this for a long time, but food, what you put on the end of your fork, we used to think calories in, calories out, doesn't really matter. You're fueling your body, it doesn't matter with what. But what we've learned and what's in the research is what you put on the end of your fork is truly information to your cells. It will turn good genes off, and it will turn bad genes on, and vice versa. There's a saying in functional medicine that genetics loads the gun, lifestyle and nutrition pull the trigger. So you can say I have horrible genes. I personally know, I've been tested, I know I'm a cardiovascular train wreck as far as my genetics, but all my phenotypic information is perfect because I'm in line where I'm eating. I'm doing all those things I need to do. So you can control your genes, very much so. So I want you to hear me say that. This is a great slide. Sometimes, oh, here you can see it better than it sounds when I do it, but this is probably one of my favorite slides. This is a pre and post nutrition intervention. So these are 500 cancer-causing genes. We all have them. These are 500 of them. The slide on the left is pre-nutrition intervention. So think your standard American diet, what everybody's eating around every fast food corner and everything. They have almost all been turned on. They are glowing red. 8 weeks post-intervention, on the right, almost all of those cancer-causing genes have literally been turned off by food alone. No drug out there will do that. Only food, only what you put on the end of your fork. This is huge. Again, this is, I talk with people all the time. Our genes haven't changed. So 10,000 years ago, we were hunters gatherers. I'll meet with, and I don't think when I say overweight people, I want you to hear me say not all overweight people are unhealthy and not all underweight people are healthy, okay? So there's a term called skinny fat. You can be thin and mostly fat, which is not healthy either. But we were hunters gatherers 10,000 years ago. We ate all the time, all day long when we could, berries, nuts, things that our body knew what to do with, knew how to absorb, metabolize, all that stuff. I will have overweight people look at me and go, Toni, you wouldn't believe I never eat. Yeah, I do, because I understand what's going on, and I'll get to that in a minute. But our genes have not changed, but our environment has. When you think about fast food and you think about processed food and you think about genetic modification, hybridization, all these things have changed in our environment. Our bodies, they don't know what to do with it a lot of times. It's foreign. I always put this up here just because this is a good reminder. One fast food meal a day, a child would have to run a marathon. And as far as I'm concerned, school lunch, and I know I'm being videotaped, but school lunch is a fast food meal. I mean, it's equivalent as far as nutrient. When I go to school and I see what my kids don't eat because I pack their lunch, but what other kids are eating, that's a fast food meal, and we can't keep up. You can't outrun the donut. You just can't. And that's why it goes back to not exercise first, it's nutrition. Then we move on to exercise. This is a nice reminder because a lot of people, the muffin tops and everybody has this fat around here. I always, point this out because that is a different kind of fat. That's an endocrine system in and of itself. It's completely different types of fat. That visceral, that adipose fat, the adiposity, it talks to your pancreas, it talks to your liver in a way that other fat doesn't, and it makes it do things like an endocrine system. So when you don't always look at somebody that has this and think of all these different things, but it's true. I mean, it can have an effect on, everything from men, erectile dysfunction, to high blood pressure, diabetes, to fatty liver, the NASH that you see on the lower left hand. We're seeing kids with fatty liver at 5 years old from soda pop. Sugar, when your liver enzymes are off, sugar. I mean, all of this it causes major problems. It's not just, I need to loosen my belt a little. There's a lot of things underneath going on. This is a study done probably a little over a year ago now, a year and a half ago, that this is why I say it's not just calories in, calories out. A calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie burned. It matters what it is, because going back to our genes, our body needs to know what it is in order to process and metabolize and absorb it like inherently our body knows how. But if it's high glycemic, high sugar, high carb, all these processed. So if you look at the consistently across the board, if there were a group of people and everybody was on a 1,000-calorie diet, that's unrealistic because you should never be on a 1,000-calorie restricted diet. And I hate the word diet, but I say that in that example. But say across the board, everybody was on 1,000 calories. Half the group to the left was on a low glycemic, think foods that our body would know what to do with, vegetables, fruits, nuts, lean meats, things like that. Low glycemic, meaning your sugar doesn't spike and go up and down because of the sharp increase in sugar and then it drops. On the right, think more soda pop, but think high sugar, processed carbs, bad fats, things like that. Across the board, if you are on a 1,000-calorie diet, half the group was on that, half the group was on the high glycemic. 100% of the time, the group on the left that was on the low glycemic will inherently burn 300 more calories a day than the group on the right. Again, because our bodies know what to do with it. They know how to it knows how to process it. I don't know if this will surprise anybody. I see this all the time, so it doesn't surprise me, maybe you guys, but almost 75% of adults, American adults, eat vegetables less than, or fruit, less than 2 times daily. And vegetables less than 3 times. Does that surprise anybody? No. So again, we do this 3-hour course. We call it Healthy for Life. It's based off of Metagenics first-line therapy, and I'll get to that in a second. But we always start with food. We touch on stress during the class. I'm not going to get into all that in as detail. We don't have time. And then movement or exercise. So the most well-studied diet, what you're going to see today in your information packet, it's the Mediterranean or modified Mediterranean diet we're going to touch on. That's what we're going to, actually, that's the base of all of this. Relaxation and personal balance, again, it gets back to stress, because stress is horrible. Stress can do horrible things. It's not just this emotion that we go through and we have, we live with. Hormonally, it does horrible things to us. And we always are going to have stress. So what we teach in our course is it's not how to get rid of it or one daying it away. One day when I don't have stress, you're always going to have stress. It's really how you transform it and what you're doing. Sort of like the analogy of in the airplane when the mask comes down, you have to put your own mask on before you put everybody else's on. So it's how you transform the stress, because it's going to come, you're going to have it every day. And then motion. Again, this is very individual. You guys are very blessed here to have Ryan, who can, see you guys and individualize a plan. I see everything from, more athletic people to in our Healthy for Life, we have kind of the range, but I'll see very obese patients who they just want to get a knee replacement. So, but guess where I start with that? Not exercise. I'll start with, what are you putting on the end of your fork? Let's get you down to a weight that we can then start looking at different exercises and so forth. So again, very individual. And I'm across the hall every Friday for a couple of hours. Ryan's here Tuesday, Thursday. So you can meet with any of us anytime we're here. So again, going back to the Mediterranean, the reason this is based off of this, with all the research that Metagenics has put into it, is across the board, this was the most impressive. So if you look up there, you can see the DASH diet, Atkins, South Beach, all of those things. Across the board, Mediterranean proves to be the best, whether it's weight, it decreases weight, waist circumference. Steatosis is your retention of fat in the cell, so decreases that. Insulin sensitivity, I'll go over more of that here in just a minute. De novo lipogenesis is your conversion of carbs into fat. Inflammation, so I know, Shannon, we were talking about inflammation earlier. Across the board, it decreases inflammation regardless of your condition. Because again, you're putting the right stuff on the end of your fork. And then all of those last 4, that's your cholesterol panel. So your good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, triglycerides, and your total. This is interesting because all of those other diets, they take things completely out, or they focus heavily on, let's remove this or that. The Mediterranean, it doesn't reduce or eliminate any one single grouping. It emphasizes a healthy intake of all the above. And we'll go into that in more detail. This is just kind of a nice overall look at what this food plan offers. So we're talking about low glycemic load. So again, when you take something in, the glycemic load is how high a food makes your sugar go, a particular food. Organic, whole, unprocessed foods, minimal grains and gluten, if any. Phytochemical abundance. So again, I'll get into that in just a minute, but phytochemicals in your vegetables, anti-inflammatory dietary fats, small frequent meals, and getting back to that stress, relaxed, mindful eating. I mean, it should be, what are Americans doing? We're driving to work, eating our breakfast burrito, or, we're just always, in a rush. So again, getting back to how can I, even if it's once a week, have a relaxed, nice evening of eating or whatever. This is another way of looking at that. A lot of times patients I have will post this on their refrigerator or whatever. Again, it just goes through that in a different way. So these are the food categories that we're going to get really familiar with here in just a little bit, but I wanted you to have an overview. We're going to be talking about protein, dairy and dairy alternatives, vegetable. You'll hear me say category 1 and category 2. So category 1, vegetables, think of anything above the ground. Category 2 is anything below the ground because they're more starchy. Legumes, beans, grains, fruits, healthy fats, seeds, and nuts. And then we'll skip that medical food part. This is just another... we're creatures of habit. So a lot of times, we like carrots, so we always eat carrots. And really, it's about where you get the greatest benefit is the mixture of vegetables. Honestly, it's the mixture. The phytochemicals are in the different colorings of the vegetables. And when those are mixed together, you get the greatest benefit. So it's about trying different things. And I'll go more into that. So this is just backing that up. The milieu of phytochemicals is associated with the greatest protection or treatment for chronic disease. I'm a why person, so my husband always said I should have been an attorney, because if somebody tells me something, I'm really not likely to do it unless they tell me why, or I can find a reason why. And so this is, even my kids, this is probably overboard, but even my 6-year-old, when he was 4, knew that lycopene was in red vegetables and that helped with your prostate, But again, I'm starting them to understand why. So this goes through each color. Like the red is, think of healthy urinary tract, healthy heart, yellow, orange, vision, immune system, white, cholesterol. I also throw immune system in that. Green, bones, teeth, vision, purple, healthy aging, memory function. That's a big memory function, is anything blue, purple. So think about that 88%. So 8 out of 10 Americans fall short. 88% of the time fall short in blue and purple. And think of the amount of dementia and Alzheimer's and all these things that we're seeing is on the rise. So going back to that school lunch, this is kind of the typical. A lot of times when I go through people's menu plans, I see the browns and the yellows and the whites on the page. This is pretty much the standard American diet. And they don't make it easy out there to really know what to eat because there's a lot of money in food companies and there's a lot of money in pharmaceutical companies. So again, I'm being taped, and that's all I'm going to say about that. This is more in depth why with each color. So the reds, the lycopene, it gives you the benefits. So there's that prostate, breast, skin cancer. But I like the found in because a lot of times, again, I'm a creature of habit. I heard when I was worked for my IT company, there was a doctor there that always said culture eats change for lunch every day. And it's true because we get stuck in the rut of doing the same thing. Sometimes we just need a hand to be pulled out. But I like the found in because there's all different, especially on the orange. So when I say, do you get lots of orange and yellows? Oh, I eat oranges all the time. But people think of all the other things that comes in. Clementines, who knew? Papaya, apricots, yellow raisins. So there's a lot of things that you can, if you just open your mind to. And that's why I think when we get in more in detail in the Mediterranean plan, don't think about, oh gosh, I'm losing my grains. Think about, wow, look at all these new things that I'm going to get to experience, and open your mind up and look at it in a more positive light than what you can't do. Because there's a lot here you can do. And 100% of the time when I walk somebody through this and they stay on it for any length of time, they tell me it is hard to get the food in that I need to get in. They have a hard time getting it in. Greens, the lutein, zeaxanthin, it just helps maintain good vision. We went over that already. Kale, spinach, broccoli, kiwi, honeydew, cauliflower, kale, all of those things. The blue-purple, blueberries, I think everybody knows that, blackberries. The one thing, is that on here? Oh yeah, eggplant. So like with eggplant, I never thought about it like this until I learned this, but on the outside, it's the blue and the purple, but what color is an eggplant on the inside? So you're getting the whites too, and there's that good mix. So, and this is the season right now. I tell people when they look at me crazy, I eat more whites. What do you mean? Cook with garlic, cook with onions, because that you're fighting, everyone wants an antibiotic. Well, guess what? When I give an antibiotic, I'm killing your good guys and your bad guys. And most of the time it's viral and I'm just screwing your gut up, frankly. So if you can help your immune system from the inside out by eating more whites, you're actually, again, pumping your body up to do what it's meant to do and what it's supposed to do. and this is the whites, so the Allicin, garlic, onions, leeks, scallions, chives. The more you can throw seasonings too, I mean, curcumin and turmeric and things like that, if you can throw in, that helps with inflammation, immune system. Breaking the cycle, so this might not be in the best order, but earlier I talked about the gal who was overweight that said, I know, you wouldn't believe I hardly ever eat. Yes, I do. Because what happens, and I think, 9 times out of 10, I ask somebody, are you craving carbs, sugar? One, it's addictive, and they'll say yes. Well, what happens is, and again, if we don't eat for 4, 6, 8 hours at a time, we skip through lunch, we didn't eat breakfast, what happens is we are craving, because 10,000 years ago, we kind of ate, we grazed. Now, and our body is very, very smart at storing fat. I mean, we got really good at storing fat because it didn't know when we were going to eat again, right? Back 10,000 years ago. So now we don't eat for 4, 6, 8 hours, and our body's going, oh, when is she going to eat again? And so, or he, and so when you do eat, you're typically craving something that's going to help you store fat. So high sugar, high carb, high fat, high bad fat. We eat that. What happens? Our sugar spikes. When our sugar goes up, our pancreas is squeezed, so insulin comes out, because what does insulin do? Insulin is the door knocker that opens our cells up to accept the sugar, because we need sugar for energy in our cells. But because there's so much, our cells fill up. So our pancreas says, wait a minute, sugar's not gone, let out more insulin, let out more insulin. So insulin comes out, it's knocking on the cell. The cell's like, I'm full, I'm full. So then we get insulin resistance. You guys have all heard of that term, insulin resistance, right? And so what happens then is we plummet and we crash. That's when you crash. And then what happens? A couple hours later, when you crash, then what are you doing? You're craving more high sugar, high carb, and we get into that. That's called the cookie cycle. So you get into that, and you're skipping meals because you're white knuckling it, thinking I'm not supposed to eat. I mean, I'm going to gain weight. But then really you're just starving yourself, and then we get into that storing fat again. So it's a vicious, vicious cycle. The bioimpedance analysis, I'll just mention this. Again, this is a 3-hour course that we do. The BIA is something that is a very sophisticated way of tracking or telling us your body composition. So it tells us your body fat versus your lean body mass, your intracellular versus your extracellular fluid, so the fluid that's in your cell versus the fluid that's outside your cell. I can tell a lot by that, the way you're shifting fluid. As we age, you want your cells like a big squishy juicy grape. And when you're leaking fluid for various reasons, I won't go into all that, but when you're leaking fluid and they're shriveling up like a raisin, that's not good. You want to keep them full of fluid and so forth. Then your phase angle is something else the BIA gives us, that is your nutritional status of your cell membrane. So every cell has good fat around it. That's how we function. Most of our brain's made of fat. It will tell me that nutritional status, and if you've got it, it's a good way of saying you're on a good fish oil, you're not, you need fish oil. It also helps keep that fluid in the cell from leaking. So we're not going to do this obviously today, but this is available. It's a very, very specific and one of the best ways to do the plan that we're going to do. Behind you on the wall, or if anybody has a calculator, you can Google, and if you can do this today or you don't have to, I'll run through it, and whoever wants to do it can. So you can figure out your BMR. It's a less accurate, but it serves the purposes of today, and it's decent. You can calculate your basal metabolic rate, has everything to do with your metabolism, the amount of energy expended daily, but it varies sometimes significantly based on your percentage of lean mass versus fat mass and so forth that the BIA gives you. But again, this is just a generic way of doing it. If you want to, if you have a calculator and you can Google, or a phone, your internet, when you get home, whatever, Google your BMR calculator, and you know how those little calculators will come up. You can calculate it. It's based off of your age, height, and weight, or you can turn around and get, you can do the same thing and just kind of guesstimate right there if you want to, because that's the next part that we're going to walk through. So if you want to do that, we're going to go through the menu, the principles of it. We're going to calculate the caloric goal here and review some foods. A lot of times, I won't even go to this. I will just hand somebody the food plan and say, you know what, because you have to meet people where they are. People, I know a lot of you had heard me say this, and people laugh when I say it, but it's true. I meet people where they are. I've had people actually say to me, Toni, you're going to be so proud of me. I went from 2 extra long cheese conies at Sonic to 1. That's great. I mean, because that's where they are. And so you meet people where they are. A lot of times I'm literally giving them the sheet just to say, this is the kind of food that you need to be getting in your brain that's healthy, because they have no idea. So again, we're going to go into this in a little bit of detail, right, if you want to, but that we're going to create a little bit of a personalized menu plan, and then I'll summarize it. So if you guys would all turn to the sheet on the very back, this is what we're going to do. Yes, I'm sorry, yes. Do you guys have pens and... Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So what you'll do is, well, first of all, actually turn back to the front. I'm going to go over this first. We're not going to fill this out. You do this on your own. A lot of times patients won't think anything about this, but it's a huge deal. So when I see somebody for the first time, when we start this kind of thing, I will have them fill out this health profile. I will have them go through and score it and come up, and it is no kidding. I will see 50s, 60s, 70s, and greater. And they say, yeah, I mean, I feel like crap. So that's what I score. 2 weeks, if they will follow the plan that I'm going to show you, 2 weeks later, almost 100% of the time, well, 100% if they followed it. But of course, I'm not following them around all the time. So it's up to you. You're driving your own bus. But if they'll follow this, their score will always be under 20, if not 7 or 8. And I am just like, oh, I mean, the first time I started doing this, I'm like, look, I was so excited for them. I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, but it happens so slowly. They don't realize how, you've ever been sick or you think, oh, that was the worst thing ever. And a month later, you kind of forget about it. And that's how we do with our symptoms. There's such minimal things sometimes. Oh, the dry skin or the bumps on my arms or the headaches or the whatever it is will go away. And they'll say, yeah. And I'm like, if I could have bottled that up and put it in a pill, and you scored that the first day and I gave you the pill and you felt that good the next day, it would have been a big difference. I wouldn't probably, well, I'd still be sitting here today, but because I like what I do. But anyway, so do that and then get a copy of it, or I can email it to you. Fill it out, and then if you follow this at all, fill it out again and see and honestly score yourself. Okay, so now over to the back. Again, normally we would have that little BIA printout where I would be telling you how to fill all this in, but since we don't, if you'll calculate your BMR real quick, so just do your weight. It's right up there behind you. If you just type it in, if anybody doesn't have one, you want to borrow mine, or if you don't want to do it now, you don't have to, you can just watch the rest of us. So when you get your BMR, put that in that top line of that, of your sheet. So, right?
What should it be between?
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, anything from, I would say, I wouldn't go under 1,300. Anything from 1,300 to 2,000. And again, it really is going to depend on activity level. I mean, and this isn't set in stone. I mean, if you are getting active, or if you're active, or you're going to start a program, or I work with people on this, and I'll get there. So write in your BMR, round it up, just round it up. And then your activity, if you look at activity adjustment, the mild, moderate, sedentary, put in there. So if you are moderately active, which it says 30 to 60 minutes 5 times a week. I do heavy weights 3 times a week and sometimes some cardio. I still would count that as moderate because I know how hard I'm working out. Again, try to get it as close to, where you're at, and put that, so if it's moderate, put 1.3 in that activity factor adjustment. Or 1 if you're sedentary, or whatever. And then multiply that and get your activity adjusted subtotal. I'll fast forward. So there's the BMR of Angie average. And you'll see she's at 1639. And her activity adjustment is 1.1, which comes out to be 1,800. And then the weight loss, so again, this is where we're going to have to guess, because on that BIA, you'll actually get your percentage, your fat percentage, so how much of your body is made up of fat versus how much is lean mass, because a lot of times when people dive into a diet, they're not losing, they'll lose their water and then they'll lose their lean mass, which especially women, none of us want to lose that. You want to make sure that the weight you're losing is the fat percentage. We don't have that. So you're going to have to, down at the bottom, for men, women, you'll see weight loss adjustment. So in other words, a lot of women I see are definitely over that 35%. So then they've got some room to play with, the 200 to 500 calories. Here's what I would bet. I'm just throwing this out there. But just by the looks of all of us in here, I bet even if you didn't do anything but change your eating habits from what they currently are, and some of you may be healthy, so I'm not saying that, but on average, if we would just shift from eating, what we are eating to going to a more plan like this, you wouldn't even necessarily need to subtract calories and that sort of thing, if that makes sense. But if you're overweight and you think that your fat mass is over the 35% or whatever, or you're outside normal range, so that's pretty safe guessing. I mean, if you're within normal range, don't change it. You're just going to keep it rounded up to what we said. If you are at increased fat percentage, so you're just outside of normal range, you're a little over fat, again, we don't know because we didn't do the BIA, then you're going to subtract anywhere from 100 to 300 calories. If you are significantly overweight and you want to lose weight, then you would go to that 200 to 500 calories, and you're going to put that on the next. So think about it this way. If you got the 500 is sort of strict. I try not to start out with 500, but if you did the 500 that every day, if you followed that every day, you would lose a pound a week, because that's 3,500 calories a pound. So 3,500 per week, you would lose a pound a week. So 4 pounds a month. Again, people try that and go, oh, that's way too much. And I'll say, okay, just change it. I mean, go back in there and put 200, not 500, or whatever you can do. But again, just a lot of times I'm just handing the plan out, the food, what are we looking at food-wise. I'm not even saying follow this many this serving, follow this many, servings per day and blah, blah, blah. I'm just giving that to get familiar with healthy food. And that is I don't want you to get caught up in all these numbers. If it's confusing to you, forget it and just follow the healthy eating plan of what am I supposed to be eating, because that's more important than the how much. Because again, if you're eating the right stuff, you can eat some of this stuff all day long and be okay, like your category 1 vegetables. So don't get too caught up in that. But when you find your caloric goal, so you do the weight loss adjustment, say you take off 100 or you don't take off any, whatever. You get to your caloric goal. In this case, Angie average, she was 1,800. She was pretty aggressive. She wanted to lose a pound a week. So she did the 500. So she came out to, we rounded up, but she didn't. So she would have come out to 1,300. And you'll see the 1,300 as her caloric goal. So from there, you'll go to the back of the page you were just looking at. So just flip it around. I didn't staple these. I apologize. I probably would have done it a little bit differently. So the food modification worksheet, you can circle whatever, if you're in between, kind of just, again, there's not a 1,400. So you're going to go, up or down. There's kind of that jump from 1,300 to 1,600. If you're somewhere in between, we can always take from certain categories, or they're pretty much the same. I mean, you get an extra legume with the 1,600, never a bad thing. And pretty much the rest is normal, or is the same. You'll see from 13 to 16. So just guesstimate, circle where you're at. And then we'll move right on to the important stuff, which is the menu plan. So if you'll just flip it literally around like this. So you're on this, you just look at that. You'll see at the top of this page, let me get there. So this is the page that we're looking at right here. And you'll see at the top the concentrated proteins, how many servings a day in each one of these. Legumes, 2 servings a day. So if you look back at your sheet on the one you circled, it'll tell you how many to put in. Skip the medical food. We'll do this another time. That's not important here. The concentrated protein is, for example, 2 or 3. If you're on a 1,600 calorie nutrition plan, it'll be 3 for protein. So you'll just fill your protein in as 3 servings per day. Legumes, whatever those servings are. Dairy alternative. If you haven't already picked up on this, the what you're putting on your fork is the most important thing you need to be concerned with. The what you're putting on your fork, if nothing else. Then it's the how often, and we're going to get to the how often. and then it's the how much. Because again, if you're putting the right stuff on your fork, so I think that in this country we are completely turned around. We lead with let's lose weight, let's lose weight. Well, clearly that's not working for most people. And then we get caught up in the, well, how much and how much. Well, yes, that matters if you're eating the wrong stuff. It certainly matters with the how much. But if you're eating the right stuff, it's not really that big of a concern. What we typically do, and we can do this or we don't have to, this is where you may even want to unstaple. This is where I would have probably printed 2 different sheets, because you're going to be flipping back and forth between the sheet that you were just on, the foods, and the one behind that. So it's kind of, I wish they were not on this front back. What I do then, and you can do this on your own, I'll just walk you through it, but on this sheet here, oh, and you'll see this even has serving sizes. So again, guesstimate. People say, well, what about some soup that I buy? Just guesstimate. Again, if it's got healthy stuff in it, you don't have to be exact. If it's a little extra hummus, oh well. If you can't stick to 1/8 of an avocado, I'm not sticking to 1/8. I eat the whole darn thing. Use your judgment there. So at this point, I wish I had 2 different pages, but again, I'm not the one that printed these off, so I apologize. But if you're looking at the timing page, the one on the right, I have people start with filling out their approximate times. Not everybody is the same time, but on average, what time are you waking up? What time are you having your morning meal? A lot of times I'll skip to the most important things. Everybody's pretty consistent with lunch, or should be, unless you're missing it altogether. But if you didn't miss lunch, what time would it be? And kind of fill in, because what I want you to really focus on is getting something in your body every 2 to 3 hours. Something. If that's a handful of nuts as a snack. And so what I'll normally do is you can write your times in, and you can see here how Angie Average has put in some, I skipped right down to it. So she fills in after her times, she'll fill in, you really need to be eating within that 30 minutes of after you wake up. I mean, obviously if you're not dressed or not, you're not diving to the kitchen, but within an hour, it would be nice on your way to work, as we all drive to work eating, but get something in. And then it would be nice to get something in, even again, if it were a handful of almonds or walnuts, get something in before lunch. So, kind of that, if you're waking up at 7, you're having that snack around 9:30, 10, you're eating that lunch around 12, 12:30. Again, this is on average, not every day is going to be the same, but if it's the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you can make choices like this, you win. You win. And then the other big thing that people think is negative is the evening snack time. People almost fall out of their chair when I tell them, we've always heard don't eat after a certain time and don't, excuse me. Really, you need a protein snack before you go to bed. If you're eating dinner at, 8:30, 9 o'clock when you're getting home, then of course, you don't need a snack, don't stay up to get your snack in. But common sense, if you eat at 6, 7 o'clock and you don't go to bed until 10, then get a little snack, and a protein snack, not ice cream or something like that, but something with some protein in it, because what that does is it stabilizes your blood sugar through the evening. So you're not dipping and getting awakened and having to go to the bathroom and all. You'll get better sleep. It'll stabilize your blood sugar. It'll help with that insulin resistance and all of that stuff. So think protein snack at that evening. But like a sweet tooth, we talked about last week briefly, sunflower seed butter is a really nice sweet, and you can do that with an apple. So apple still, that natural sugar is good. It's still sugar. So if you just eat fruit all day long, that's still sugar. It's not as bad as high fructose corn syrup and things like that. It's still going to raise your blood sugar before you go to bed. So, countering that with like a nut butter with, a banana dipped in it, or apple, or a lot of times I'll do a protein shake for my boys because they've got sweet, they're after dinner, they're wanting. So I'll do that with some nut butter and a banana and almond milk or coconut milk, and I'll mix that up, and that's what we have. So there's ways to get around that as long as you're countering it with, So that's the plan. Again, how to stay how to be successful. I'll just go over these again, high level. Follow the food groups. The one thing I will add to condiments so the closer that you follow this, obviously the better you do. I get questions, well, what about this and what about that? Again, I don't work for Metagenics. I didn't do the research behind it, so I will add balsamic. I just think it's a crime to not have balsamic on there. So under the condiment section, if you want to, really the only thing you should be putting on your salad is like a balsamic vinaigrette. It's hard to get those oils in during the day. If you look under the oils and how many you need, most people need 2, 3, 4 oils. Yeah, 6 oils. Remember, your brain, every cell in your body is made of good fats. We are not getting the healthy fats that we need. So like an olive oil and a balsamic mix, and put that on your salad. That's there's your oil. Earth balanced butter, I will point out. People say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I can't get my butter? Earth balanced butter is like a godsend. I mean, it has saved me. It's just like butter.
It's good.
Have you tried it?
Yes.
Oh, bless your
I
heart.
don't like margarine. I won't.
Well, good for you.
But I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so earth balanced butter I swear by, and you can put that in your stuff or on your stuff, and it's great. So, and that's another oil. So like when I have eggs in the morning, and that's a big myth too, that eggs are not bad for your cholesterol. Let me just hear everybody say that, hear me say that. So if you put earth balance in, if you're cooking at higher heats, grapeseed oil is good at higher heats. It doesn't break down, so stir fries. When in doubt with vegetables, stir fry or roast. And you can do that with the grapeseed. Lighter oils is like your olive oil. So if you're putting that on salads and things like that. So again, follow the food groups closely. Choose food from the list. Of course, the closer you follow the list, the better off you are. Observe the size guidelines, the serving size guidelines. Again, within reason. I'm not going to have 3 nuts or whatever it is and stop. I mean, I'll have a handful of nuts if that's my snack. If I want a little extra nut butter, I'm going to have a little extra nut butter. It's better than Jiffy peanut butter, So, and then observe your meal snack timing. That's really, really important. So again, we don't want to get into that starvation mode where our body is screaming, going, okay, when are they going to eat again? And store, and then we get in that cookie cycle. And then those are the Fantastic Four again. And with that, I have something I'd like to offer you guys. I'll just bring this up. I have something I'd like to offer. I love to look at food logs because I think sometimes it's just overwhelming when you say, I don't even know where to start. Again, going back to the cheese coney, I mean, I get people who really know what they're doing to have no idea, and that's okay. Again, our society does not make it easy. And so where I get I like to think you would get the greatest benefit is going through a food log. One thing I will say about food logs is no one's judging you. No one's going to go, wow, look at this. It's to your benefit. But I will say, my trainer had me do a food log, and I think twice about what I put down because I know somebody else is going to look at it. If you can fight that urge and put down what you normally eat and just think, this is for my benefit, Toni's not going to think, oh Lord. If anything, it's of great help because it's that much more room for improvement. I mean, I look at it and get excited because I think, oh my gosh, this is easy. I mean, we could easily do just a couple. I'm not the overhaul, change everything every day. And I know one person, and I won't say their name, but we went through a food log, and if they want to speak up, that's great. If not, that's okay too. But I would like to think it was very helpful. Because again, it's not this overwhelming, you have to change 50 things. It's one thing at a time, and it's guidelines. So what I put together, sort of based on this, there's a couple things. I think there might be a healthy gluten-free cornbread in there, but overall, they're really healthy recipes. I put a whole, and I did it in PDF, so it's a whole menu book that if you can use it online, or if you print it, you can insert it into like a 3-ring binder. Here's the offer, and this goes to anybody watching this at any time because I'm here every Friday. If you will fill out a full, honest week's worth of a food log and bring it in and meet with me at some point, I will email you that PDF of all of those healthy, easy recipes. So that's an offer. So pick one of those up if you want to. And then it's time to eat. So what I brought today, I've got recipes for back in the corner. So again, it's I'm not vegetarian. I just like it because it's a lot of, I have 3 little boys. I love leftovers. I don't have time to cook all the time. Come to the Friday sessions because again, a lot of information at once, although handy it may be, it's not realistic. So the more you can hear consistent little things and pick up little habits, like you guys were like, oh, I tried roasting, oh, I tried the sun butter, oh, it's nice to pick up those little things because it's a journey. You don't wake up like those people that go to the gym 3 hours and after 7 days they quit because it's not realistic. Same thing here. I'm still learning. I'll always be learning. And so I don't expect you to go and go, oh, I'm changed and I'm eating perfect. That's not the point. The point is to pick up little things as you go. So come to the Friday class. We're doing this again on the 20th, so tell your friends, your colleagues. But I have vegetarian chili, a little bit of cheese with no bovine growth hormone for any of those who know what that is. So I try to do see, again, that's going to be in the future. I don't want to overwhelm anybody. We'll talk about that. What's in our what is in our stuff that we want to keep an eye out for. And then I've roasted cauliflower. So again, when in doubt, roast. You can roast any vegetable and it turns out lovely. And my kids, my 2-year-old will eat this in the back seat as we're going to soccer practice for my older ones like popcorn. So, and it's healthy, it's good, and you're not dipping it in ranch because that's the only way I could ever figure out how to eat cauliflower. Like, who the heck eats cauliflower? How do you do it? So the recipe is back here, and I think that's it. Any questions, thoughts, or we want to get our food, and then we'll just talk around the table. All right. Overwhelm you, and this I didn't mean to talk this long, but come to the Friday sessions, and I'd be more than happy to do any other sessions. If anybody has anything in mind they'd like to hear more about, just drop a little thing off next door and let me know. And then don't forget to take your food log and come back and get my PDF emailed to you. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.